My Lords, it's very useful following the Noble Earl Lord Russell because I agree very much with the last few statements. This is an incredibly helpful group. I think the Labour Party, the Labour government would be very well advised to take all of these amendments. They're so helpful and so reasonable and so sensible, and they actually do bring in issues that I think have been left out without really any rational reason. I deeply regret not having signed the Noble Lord Sicker's Amendment 29. I agree with him completely. And in fact, I support most of the amendments in this group. I also signed Amendment 78 because who doesn't want regulators of a public service to work in the interests of the public? I mean, this is a very clear statement to make, I would have thought, and quite necessary, even though it seems so obvious. Now, on Amendment 84, which is in my name, I admit that when I put this amendment to remove the duty of economic growth from water companies and regulators, I hadn't really appreciated that if I looked at it from a completely different perspective, possibly from the perspective of the last government, it was a remarkable success story. Over 14 years, because of course we had a huge growth in sewage and pollution. Well done, guys. And it is a growth in sewage that has had a multiplier impact on gross national product. It's so gross that actually other countries see this as indicative of the UK's approach to running privatised services, i.e. not very good. Because when we have a river full of dead fish, the authorities go out and buy more fish to replace them. That's economic growth, huge success. When E. coli is found in our water systems, we get a double hit of economic growth. There's the extra spending by the NHS treating all the cases of gastroenteritis, and of course all the extra money spent on plastic bottles of water handed out when consumers can't drink from the tap. We even have the prospect of a rain-soaked country like ours spending millions hiring supertankers to import drinking water from Norway. That's extra spending and extra growth. So I can see growth is a success factor in the previous government's estimation. But of course, we can't forget as well the staggering growth in shareholder dividends and CEO salaries when these private water companies take money out of the hands of bill payers and help the rich to buy new private jets. Then that also adds to GNP. My problem is that this particular kind of GNP actually adds to most people's unhappiness. In fact, that's why the promotion of growth for growth's sake is actually complete nonsense. And I don't understand why anyone would advocate that. Because the more that rivers are polluted, the unhappier the lives of everybody using that particular space, whether it's dog walkers, anglers, wild swimmers, nature lovers. And the more money that shareholders or CEOs get, the less happy the bill payers are about 40% of their money being spent on debt repayments and dividends. So growth is not an indicator of happiness or the economy being run for the benefit of the many. It's a nonsense soundbite for the economically illiterate and needs to be deleted from this legislation. That's my Amendment 84. Now, 85, if Ofwat had been given a duty to protect the environment when it was set up decades ago, then we wouldn't be in the mess we're in at the moment. There would have been a clear connection in Ofwat's role between signing off the bill payers' money to fund environmental improvements and actually ensuring that those improvements happened. Ofwat needs two sets of books open on its desk all the time. The first would show the real state of the industry's finances, including the accounts of the big financial businesses that own the water companies. And the second would show whether or not those companies were environmentally solvent. And by that, I mean whether these companies are capable of meeting the environmental standards on clean water and the obligations to maintain the health of the waterways. Now, whether Ofwat are competent enough to carry out this new duty or any other duties is a completely separate debate. We have to remember that Ofwat was meant to be looking after the interests of bill payers, but has completely failed to do so. It's allowed the water industry to become owned and controlled by a superstructure of financial institutions who use clever scams to fleece the bill payer in ways that Ofwat has appeared to be completely oblivious to. What we do know is that if this government allows Ofwat to remain as the main regulator of private water companies over the next few years, then its role must include the environment. Fixing the regular discharges of sewage into our waterways, along with the polluting runoff from agriculture, is by far the biggest financial challenge the industry faces. If Ofwat doesn't understand that duty, then the regulation will not match up to the challenge. Now, I want to note that I'm afraid the government did not turn out very well in terms of climate change and our ecological crisis in the budget. They do not seem to understand just exactly how climate change comes down to the lowest level and affects every single individual. And I'd be really happy to help with explaining that, but it is time to put this particular duty of the environment into the legislation.